Good evening. So we're going to look a little bit at Proverbs 8, a little bit at Proverbs 9. One of the things you've surely recognized, I pointed it out a couple of times, but this is a father talking to his son, and he's training him how to be a person of gravity. He's training him how to be ultimately a future king and to be able to lead with strength and with integrity and with fortitude and with godly wisdom, and to be a person who is a serious person, not a silly person, a fool, but a person that is a serious person who knows the way that the world works, who knows how to engage with different kinds of people, who knows when not to engage, who knows what it means to truly build something that is successful. And so in many respects, this appeals to the Proverbs. They appeal to young men because it's a father talking to his boys about gaining and acquiring wisdom. Simultaneous to that, though, they appeal to young women because the father is presenting wisdom in the feminine. He also presents folly in the feminine. So a father's talking to his son, and he personifies these things that are possessive of God, or that God possesses, namely wisdom. He says that the world was laid in wisdom. God built the world in wisdom. But now the father is appealing to his young son, and he's going to talk to him about the kind of woman that he's going to marry. And then ultimately in Proverbs 31, you're going to see a picture of the Proverbs 31 woman who possesses these kinds of things. So there's a draw for men to say, this is what I need to be, this is what I need to take. But there's also a draw for women to say, this is what I should be. And I'll say this at the first. In this culture is doing everything that it possibly can to tell young women that the best way to be women is to be like men. And you see this in all of the Marvel movies when, a 100-pound woman just kicks the snot out of the Hulk, okay? That's fantasy. That's fantasy. That's not reality. There are young women that are growing up thinking that are growing up doubting their nature that was given them by God and thinking that the way that I be successful and taken seriously in this world is to essentially mimic the way that men are. And that's not true. That is a lie. That doesn't work. It doesn't work in the real world. It isn't taken seriously in the real world. To be a serious, godly, dignified woman is to maintain all of the feminine beauty and that quiet, godly, dignified spirit that God has given you, to create the kind of environment in which those that are in your midst are fed and are nourished and are granted life. Women are literally life givers. Paul makes this point. He says that the head of woman is man. He makes this argument to the Corinthians, but then he says, but man is not independent of woman because every man came through woman. Woman is the giver of life. She was named at the very beginning, she was named Eve because she is the mother of all that is living. God has granted different strengths and different abilities and different purposes to men and women, and you see this played out here. And so the way that I read this, we're looking at Proverbs chapter 8. You can turn there in your Bible. You can see it's Proverbs 8, 12 to 21. I just want you to see this almost as like a dating interview. When you go out and you're meeting a person for the first time, You're asking different kinds of questions. They're relaying certain information. You're figuring out, who is this person? What are they on the inside? Not just what do I see externally. That's ultimately not going to be as important as what it is that's happening internally. Who are you? What are your values? What are you all about? And you see that here in Proverbs chapter 8, verses 12 to 21. And wisdom is personified as this godly woman. That this he's trying to say, son, you've seen women like this in real life. This is what you should desire. In chapter 9, we'll see the opposite. The loud, boisterous woman of folly that is reckless and brings in her lovers and does, maybe up front there's an appeal, but ultimately there's no appeal at all. And so the father appeals there, and so you see an appeal to young men to say, draw after this, find yourselves this kind of woman, but also pursue after wisdom in this kind of way. And same thing for young women. Be like this, personify these kinds of things within your life. So Proverbs chapter 8, beginning in verse 12, wisdom is speaking, and she says, I, wisdom, dwell with prudence, and I find knowledge and discretion. The fear of the Lord is hatred of evil. Pride and arrogance in the way of evil and perverted speech I hate. So she says this up front. She says, I hate pride. I hate arrogance. I hate the way of evil. I hate perverted speech. She's very forward with that. She says, I have counsel and sound wisdom. I have insight. I have strength. By me kings reign, and rulers decree what is just. By me princes rule, and nobles, all who govern justly. I love those who love me, and those who seek me diligently find me. Riches and honor are with me, enduring wealth and righteousness. My fruit is better than gold, even fine gold, and my yield than choice silver. I walk in the way of righteousness, in the paths of justice, granting an inheritance to those who love me and filling their treasuries. Now, notice there in verse 15, wisdom says, by me kings reign and rulers decree what is just. By me princes rule and nobles, all who govern justly. So there's this picture of this man that's on the front, and he's leading and he's governing, and he is the king, he's the authority. There's a picture of strength there, and yet behind him, behind the scenes, there is this strength that's being granted to him by way of this woman. Now, this goes back to the very beginning of the Bible when God made Adam and he put him in the garden, and God made him to work. God made him to be, God made men more utilitarian. He made us physically stronger and more to kind of be the front runners. But he said it's not good for man to be alone. Man was to subdue the world, to bring it into order, to take the chaos and make order out of it, to build things and to have a godly kind of dominion, to be like God is. But God said man can't do it alone, so he gave him a woman who would be a helper suitable for him. And she has all of these complementary strengths that are not his. He doesn't have them. He needs them. She possesses them. And he's not going to be ultimately very successful without them. So God made the two to come together. And you see that picture here of this king and these nobles and these princes that are ruling, but behind them it's not in your face. In chapter 9, he's going to say it shouldn't be in your face, but behind him and undergirding him is the strength that comes from the woman known as wisdom. And, she says a number of things, like, if you were to say to her, where do you live alone? And she says this in verse 12. She says, I, wisdom, dwell with prudence. That's what she lives with. So that's the kind of environment that she's in. There's prudence, there's wisdom, there's discretion, there's tact. And you say, well, what do you fill your time with? She has all these statements. I dwell, I find, I have, I love, I walk, I give. All of these are all through here. Well, what do you fill your time with? Well, look at verse, what verse is it? Oh, verse 12. I find, so this is wisdom, I find knowledge and discretion. So the wisdom which comes from God is concerned with knowing things. It doesn't desire to be ignorant. It wants to know the way the world works. It wishes to seek it out, and it wishes to seek out discretion. You could then say, well, what have you acquired in your quest as you've gone out to do this? She says, I live with prudence. That's my housemate. I find knowledge and discretion. You could say, well, what have you acquired? And she says in verse 14, I have counsel and sound wisdom. I have insight. I have strength. Think about all of the things we could spend our lives pursuing after and seeking, and the acquisitions that we have. How do they compare to this? I have wisdom and counsel and insight. I can tell you, I can look into things and explain what's happening, and there is strength that is there. So the father's he's just painting this picture for his son. Well, who do you love? In other words, who is it, if that you're going to spend your time with and attach yourself to? Well, she says this, I love those who love me, and those who seek me diligently find me. So she is, this wisdom personified is available for anybody that loves wisdom, for anybody that seeks out wisdom. She's available. And this is true even for the person who maybe to this point has been a fool. There are people that I know very well that lived a good chunk of their life as fools, doing all of the things that the Proverbs say not to do, aligning with all the kinds of people the Proverbs say not to align themselves with, and something happened, some traumatic event, or maybe they just saw Jesus in some capacity, and they realized, I've not been doing it right. And maybe at 40 years old or 50 years old, they then found God, turned to wisdom, and made a dramatic change and a turn in their life. And then you start to see this person who to this point had been a fool, but now they seem to possess with them, along with them, this wisdom. And you wonder, where in the world did this come from? This is something that the disciples, who were uneducated, probably pretty rough men that Jesus drew after, that he called to himself, that after they'd spent time with Jesus, they were different, and people could tell they were different. So how does that happen? And the beauty of this is that this is available for all of us. No matter who you are or what you've done, this wisdom is available. She says, I will love anyone that loves me, anyone that seeks me. I'm available. I'm not going to be hidden away. If you seek after wisdom tonight and you say, I want to live by wisdom, I want to acquire wisdom, you will be able to find it. She even talks about the source of her success. She says, verse 20, I walk in the way of righteousness, in the paths of justice. These are those that are defined by God. These are the paths that I walk. I walk in what is just. I walk in what is right. And she gives many things. Verse 18, riches and honor are with me, enduring wealth and righteousness. Verse 21, she grants an inheritance to those who love me, and she fills their treasuries. We looked last week that those who give first to the Lord and follow sound wisdom, their barns will be filled with plenty, and their vats will be bursting with wine. So there's this picture. And then if you look in chapter 9, you see these two contrasted. In chapter 9, verse 1, it says, wisdom has built her house. She has hewn her 7 pillars. She's slaughtered her beasts. She's mixed her wine. She's also set her table. She has sent out her young women to call from the highest places in the town. And they're calling this. They're saying, whoever's simple, let him turn in here. To him who lacks sense, she says, come, eat of my bread and drink of the wine that I have mixed. Leave your simple ways and live and walk in the way of insight. Now, here you have this picture, again, it's wisdom personified as a woman. She is a woman of integrity who's created an environment of nourishment. She's obviously very industrious. She's been very hardworking. She went out and she killed an animal, and she killed it, and then she cooked it, and she put it on the table, and then she made some bread to go with it, and then she took a variety of wines that she had, and she mixed them together. She made some amazing concoction that those guests would be able to participate in. And then she went out and she said, come here, come learn from me. And she's a nurturer, a provider, a lover, and she is incredibly resourceful. But now look down in verse 13. Do you look at the way that this contrasting woman is given? Verse 13, the woman folly is loud. She is seductive and knows nothing. She sits at the door of her house. She takes a seat on the highest places of the town, calling to those who pass by, who are going straight on their way. Whoever's simple, let him turn in here. And to him who lacks sense, she says, stolen water is sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. But he does not know that the dead are there, that her guests are in the depths of Sheol. Let me ask you a question. Put before you almost every day, in almost every imaginable way, every kind of media, whether it be a movie, television show, radio broadcast, the kinds of things that are being sung by Taylor Swift and those like her. And let me ask you this. Which of these two women is being blasted before the world as held up as a picture to draw after? Which of these one? The loud, boisterous, kind of cheap, free love, or this industrious, quiet-spirited, she doesn't shout from a roof. She sends out her maidens into the town to go and bring people to come to her home to be fed, to be nourished, not just that, but to also be granted wisdom. I just want you to see the picture that the Bible paints of which of these is advantageous for both, and what the world before us is teaching our daughters, what the world is teaching our young men. Which of these? And because the one is loud and in your face, there's just an automatic attention drawn to it, because, whoa, what's that? It's loud, it's flashy. Hey, that looks interesting. That looks kind of fun. There's always an element of truth there. Maybe an element of feminine beauty that's there. Let me draw after that. But look at verse 18. He doesn't know. So again, a dad is talking to his boy, and he says, it's flashy, it's loud, but he says, but he doesn't know that the dead are there, that her guests are in the depths of Sheol. So you have these two pictures. Which one do we desire? Which one do we admire? Which one will we emulate? Which one will we draw after? Which will we teach our boys to pursue after in a woman when we're speaking to them and we're speaking to our grandsons and talking to them about the kind of woman they should marry and seek after? The same thing when we're speaking to our daughters of what we want for them to be and how we want for them to be. It's helpful to show them side by side these two. Say, do you see this woman of the culture? Do you see the way she's presented? That's not good. But this is what's good. And so you have this contrast, and I just want to give you one piece of wisdom, because to this point, in the Proverbs, the dad, a lot of times, he's painting a real picture, and he's saying, go get wisdom. Wisdom's good. Wisdom gives you life. Wisdom gives you long life. Wisdom causes you to be prospered. Wisdom will fill your barns, so you will have resources and you'll be successful. Wisdom will allow you to be respected before the world. But there haven't been a lot of real, tangible, what exactly is, give me a real life example of wisdom, something that I can chew on, that I can go and immediately give. And it's interesting to me, the Father's been painting this picture of this woman called Wisdom, and then at the end of this picture, in verse 7 of chapter 9, he gives just a little taste of what it is that she offers, which when I read this, I think, man, I wish I would have known this when I was 20, and I probably did know it, but I certainly didn't think enough about it, and but this is a piece of wisdom that helps me even now continuously when I consider how to engage with the world, when to engage, when not to engage. And this is what it says. In verse 7, it says, whoever... So here's this woman. She's prepared this amazing meal. It smells good in her house. It's beautiful there. She's a beautiful young woman. She's created this amazing meal. She's given this great wine that she has created. And then she calls you in and she says, learn from me. This is this picture of wisdom. And this is what she says. To the young man, she says, whoever corrects a scoffer gets himself abuse, and he who reproves a wicked man incurs injury. Do not reprove a scoffer, or he will hate you. Reprove a wise man, and he will love you. Give instruction to a wise man, and he will be still wiser. Teach a righteous man, and he will increase in learning. That is one of the best little tidbits of wisdom that you could possibly grab hold of and chew on and digest and bring into your life in this world where we all have access to social media, where something happens, you can just spit out an answer really quickly. And how have we seen that goes? What did Jesus say when he was talking about the way that we engage with the world? He said, do not give your pearls to swine. Do not give to dogs what is holy, lest they trample them under their feet and destroy those things. Jesus is a prime example of this, that when he recognized that there was a group or a person whose motives were impure, a person who was a brawler, a person who was a scoffer, a person who just wanted to argue, there's no chance of creating unity with them. There's no chance. Jesus said he would draw back. And the thing that I've noticed in Jesus is that the times that he would engage were when there were other people on the periphery that themselves might have been on the fence and needed to know the answer. Because so it's Jesus and his opponent here, and they're clearly, Jesus knows their heart. He knows that they're impure. They really don't care about the answer. But there's all these people that are watching. Jesus would engage, but not for that person. He would engage for these people over here. This is the kind of wisdom that the Bible offers to us. Don't give your pearls to swine. Do not correct a scoffer. If you're in the the social media world, if you're in the office, maybe it's a boss, maybe it's a strong personality, if there's something or someone that if you try to offer wisdom or insight, it will be immediately smashed, the Bible says, don't waste your time, don't waste your efforts there. Use your time wisely. Jesus took 12 men and discipled them. The rest got a fairly limited amount of time with Jesus, but he picked 12 and he poured into them and he discipled them. He chose his time wisely. And Jesus, when he went out into the world, this is not often understood. I've heard it said many times that Jesus spoke at a third grade level so that everyone could understand what he was saying. And they cite his parables as an example. But what they don't often realize is that Jesus in Matthew chapter 13, it says that he spoke only in parables. But then it says that the disciples came to him and said, "Why do you speak to them in parables?" And Jesus said, "Because seeing they do not see, and hearing they do not hear. Blessed are your eyes because they do see, and your ears because they do hear. For to the one who was given, even more will be given to him. But the one who doesn't have, even what he does have, will be taken away from him." Jesus spoke in parables so that the truth he was conveying actually remained a mystery. So that the people that were sitting there that didn't really want to hear the true heart of the message, those people could then walk away and think, oh, he was just talking about farming. He was just talking about treasure hunters. Oftentimes the disciples themselves did not know what his parables meant. And what would they then do? Because they desired to know, they would go to Jesus after the sermon and say, "Jesus, what were you saying? What did you mean?" And Jesus would say, "Let me explain it to you. Let me give you the plain of it. No longer in mystery, now in plain terms." Jesus did what the Proverbs are saying here. And again, this is wisdom that all of us should possess, which is don't give to dogs what is holy. Don't give to pearls what is swine. Don't correct a scoffer in any capacity. In the world of social media and in real life with personalities and people that we know. Engage shrewdly. Be wise. We have a limited amount of time. If you've got two people and you know this person has real leadership potential, I see righteousness in them, and there's raw potential, pour into that person. If you see a person over here that just wants to brawl and they have no real interest in learning from you, don't give your attention there. We have limited time. But it's not just about time, because the proverb here says that if you do spend your time engaging with persons that have no interest, it says you will be injured. Have you ever received an injury from someone that you engaged with that you, after the fact, wished that you hadn't? It may not have been a physical beating, but it may have been something that was detrimental to your, to your day. Maybe ruined your day. Maybe it was just you realize, oh, this was a great waste of time. I think we've all had those experiences. So I just wanted to give that one little nugget of wisdom to just chew on it. And that's what the proverb, we're going to start looking next week at some more things like that, just little tidbits for life that are, I think, really rich and very helpful. But in the meantime, young men, wherever you may be, there's some over here, some scattered throughout. Young men, go to the Proverbs, devour the Proverbs, read them, consume them, meditate over them, and resolve to be the kinds of men that are going to pursue after that, and that are going to pursue after the kinds of women that will help you in the mission that God has granted. And young women, all through the Proverbs, there's this picture of true feminine beauty that is legitimately powerful, but not in the 100-pound girl kicking the Hulk in the face and him dying kind of way. The kind of way that can actually change the world and change a culture. That picture you get in Proverbs 31 that's a picture of amazing influence and power even. It's just in a different way than what the world is trying to say. So strive to be that. Strive to attain to that. And we will all grow in the favor of God, and we will be blessed in our pursuits. If you have any need, you may let that be known while we stand and while we sing.